Welcome once again to the Deer Talk Now podcast. I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us. Deer and Deer Hunting's podcast, fresh out of the gates with a new look this year. We hope you're enjoying it wherever you can listen to it or actually watch it. So it's on all the podcast platforms. It's on social media as a video. You can find it wherever. Today we have another esteemed guest with us, and I am so glad to have this young lady on our program. One thing I've told you guys from the start is that we want to make this podcast different than what you've seen in other places. You might have seen some real life hunting podcasts. This one is the real deal. I am trying to vet out what I believe are the best and brightest hunters in America, not only from a tactics standpoint, but also from an ethics standpoint. And Beka Garris is definitely in that top end of things. Beka, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, if you don't know Beka, you should. She has over 250,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook combined. I first became aware of Beka, I'm going to say, it's got to be 10 years ago almost. It was you basically started posting photos and videos of you bow fishing. So take us through that, Beka. We're going to get into your history in hunting, but I know that was kind of your forte when you first started.
Yes, it was. So I started bow fishing, I would say probably about 10 years ago. And I never really, heard that much about it. But in the basement of my mom and dad's house, I found an old bow fishing reel and a bunch of arrows that used to be my dad's because he used to be in it like back in the 70s. And I asked him if I could have it. And I had this old youth bow. I think it was a Browning. It was like 25-pound draw weight. And I would just wade the rivers back in New Jersey and shoot a bunch of carp. And it was so fun. So now every summer that I love doing that. It's the best part of summer.
It looks like a blast. And I know that
It is.
you've also been, now is that where you shot what are they, gar?
Those are after I moved to Ohio, which I believe there may be some gar in New Jersey where I grew up, but I've never actually seen one. But in Ohio, they're everywhere. They're in the Ohio River, they're in Little Miami, the Great Miami, pretty much any river or creek that you're going to find gar eventually.
So then when I first saw you doing that, I'm like, number one, that looks like a heck of a lot of fun. Shooting these big carp, shooting gar, basically, it's a heck of what they say, a target-rich environment.
Yes.
You have a lot of fun. That was, you were shooting, I remember it was a compound bow. And then
Yes.
I want to say you switched to traditional, 6 or 8 years ago?
Yeah,
Uh,
about 6 years ago. I
and
got
so
into it a little bit 8-ish years ago, nothing real serious. I couldn't find a bow that actually fit me. But once I found a bow I liked, then I switched to all traditional.
So tell us about that transformation. Actually, well, first of all, tell us about your history with archery. If you haven't paid attention, Beka actually is a deer and deer hunting contributor. I've got several articles here that we're going to reference, and we're going to get to another thing that Beka has really her development in hunting as. But tell us a little bit about your growing up, which for me, it's kind of unusual. New Jersey, you don't think of I mean, I know that they have good deer hunting and some turkey hunting and things like that, but you don't think of New Jersey as one of the powerhouses, especially for bow hunting.
Yeah, most people don't think so, but that's where my whole family came from. I have a lot of history in New Jersey, like generations of my family grew up in northern New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. And my dad's a big hunter, and he raised me shooting bows and guns, fishing. And then when I was 10 years old, which is the legal age in New Jersey that you're only allowed to hunt with a license, I took my test and I started out gun hunting. I gun hunted for about 6 years, and then someone my dad worked with gave him a women's compound bow when I was 16. So then I started bow hunting, and then when I was about 26, I decided to make the switch to traditional.
That's pretty cool. And so let me back up a little bit again, because I know from the article that you wrote for us, this one was in the October issue about your family. I know your dad he wasn't just a hunter. I mean, he basically was one of the guys largely responsible for the wild turkey population in New Jersey.
Yes. Yes, he was.
And how did that all start?
My dad started working for the state of New Jersey. I want to say shortly after high school. I think maybe he was closer to 20. And he was just one of their main guys right from the start. And he's awesome at it, what he does. And he's
He's
now
been honored by the NWTF for his work with turkeys.
yes, he is a life member benefactor, and he got the Joe Kerr's Excellence Award. I want to say maybe 2005, I think, at the convention in Nashville. And it was funny because he didn't know that he was going to get it. We all knew, like my mom and my
Oh,
sibling.
really?
We knew he was going to get the award, but he had no idea. We kept it a secret. And he went with some of his buddies down to the convention. He had no idea. So that was pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome. And if you're not familiar with New Jersey turkey hunting, they basically had no turkey, like most states. A lot of
Yeah.
the northern and upper Midwest states didn't have turkeys. 70s and 80s, they reintroduced them. Today, I actually had to look this up today. Today, New Jersey, they have a turkey population of about 25,000 birds, which is pretty decent. I had to look up Ohio too because I didn't know. Ohio, you guys actually probably have at least twice as many because you're killing 25,000 turkeys a year.
I would say yes. But since I've lived in Ohio for the past, I don't know, close maybe 8 years or so, the population has gone way down, and they just changed the bag limit to one instead of two.
Really? Okay. What is it
Yeah.
in New Jersey? Is it like a lottery system?
Yes, it is very complicated and it's very expensive, especially if you don't live in state. So there's about 4 weeks of turkey hunting, just like there is in most other states. But Monday through Friday is 1 week, and the next Monday through Friday. So it's A, B, C, D, E week, and E week. E week is only on the weekends. And then week A would be the first Monday through Friday. Week B would be the second Monday through Friday. So you have to buy whatever permits for whatever week you want. And you have to buy it for whatever zone you want. So if you're hunting several different zones, you're going to need several different permits.
Oh my
Very,
gosh.
yeah, it's very complicated. I don't know why they do it that way.
That's complicated. And I
Yeah.
know New Jersey is it is. I mean, it's a highly populated state, and it's different than other states. But it is cool that they not only have the opportunities, they have the population now, which they didn't have
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
That was kind of backing my way into it. But so okay, let's look at Becca's. This is your life. Okay, so basically, this is how you started hunting, and this is your progression that I've seen. Because with social media, which we didn't have when I was young, we get to see your whole development as a young woman, and now as with a family and a child. So you went from basically bow fishing, very cool. It looks like a lot of fun. You generated tons of interest in bow fishing. I don't know if you know that, but I know you did. We featured Beka in Modern Hunter. That's a magazine that we do about her bow fishing expertise and all of her exploits. You can check that out. But so then you switched to traditional archery, which isn't very usual. Tell me
No,
about that. You started with a compound bow. What was it with a traditional bow that really got you hooked?
well, I was always interested in it just because, Fred Bear and all the stories I read. My dad was always a big fan of Fred Bear. Um, but I always thought, it's probably way too hard and not that many people do it. And then I started feeling that the challenge of bow hunting was gone for me after so long with the compound. And I wanted sort of to step up my game, make it, I guess, more interesting, more challenging. So I figured maybe traditional would be the way that I could do that. And it turned out to be exactly what I needed. And I haven't hunted with a compound since.
Wow. What was the biggest hurdle for you going from a compound to a traditional bow?
Mentally, like getting in the right mindset was the hardest because when you're hunting with a compound, you are relying on your sights and your release. You're relying on your equipment pretty much. But with traditional, everything, it's all you. Like you don't have the sight, you don't have the release. You have, you can use a tab or a glove, but it's you. If you mess up, you can't blame it on your equipment. And that was really hard, like not shooting well and knowing that it was all in my mind. I had to overcome that before I could actually shoot well.
So you're shooting instinctive.
Yes.
How long did it take you to become proficient to where you said, okay, I can go deer hunting now?
Well, I started, it was almost exactly 6 years ago. It was in March. I received a custom bow from Wolf Paw and I shot it until September. So roughly 6-ish months. And I said, I don't know if I'm ready, but the only way to find out is to just go and do it. So I did a little bit of small game hunting before deer season, so squirrels and stuff. And then I went for it and it surprisingly went very, very well.
It went very well, and we've
Yeah.
documented about that. We're going to talk about that. One thing that kind of blows my mind, as with everybody, I started off small game with a compound. How in the heck are you killing squirrels and rabbits with a recurve?
Um, I feel like rabbits are a little easier just because they aren't quite as flighty as squirrels, but I don't shoot squirrels out of trees because I tend to lose my arrow if I miss or my arrow stays stuck in the tree. But it takes some practice and it's not exactly easy, but once you do it a couple of times, I mean, it's not that hard.
Well, that's coming from somebody who's a pretty darn good shot. I don't know about that. So let me talk about that for a second. You talk about you're not shooting at squirrels and trees. One of my favorite stories within a story that you've written for us was you talked about, I believe you were 10 years old and your dad had you turkey hunting and you
Yes.
guys came upon a roosted gobbler. Tell us that story.
So this was my first year turkey hunting. I had literally just turned 10. I took my hunter safety course when I was 9 because my dad didn't even know that I wanted to hunt first off. And then when I finally told him, it was like right there. I was almost 10, so he quickly rushed me through my safety course. And this was my first time ever hunting and I wanted a turkey so bad. And we had gone out days before, nothing. And we were walking through the woods. It was public land. Like it was just, the sun was just starting to come up. And we come upon this gobbler that was roosted at the edge of the field. He was like right there, so obvious. And I don't think he even saw us. And my dad said, do you want to shoot it? And obviously I did. But I knew that wasn't the right thing to do. And I felt like it was probably a test. Like I didn't know it at the time, but obviously it was a test. And I said no. And my dad said okay. And obviously I passed the test. But I like that's one thing that always stands out to me. That's one thing I always remember about that day.
That's pretty awesome. And that is a testament to Beka's ethics. You're going to see that in the content that not only she produces from the written word, her videos, and her social media posts. She holds a high ethical standard. And which brings us to your third phase, which I would call, okay, so we talked about the bow fishing. You talked about traditional hunting, which I still am amazed at. I've never hunted with a traditional bow, and I have a hard enough time with my Matthews. But you introduced, so you're in Ohio, you're married, you have a young daughter,
Yes.
and you introduced basically your baby to the outdoors and hunting.
Yes, I did.
How did this all start? Isabella is her name.
Yes,
Yeah.
Isabella. So when I first had her, like even before I had her, I had like this idea in my mind how like things wouldn't change that much after I had her. I would still be able to hunt and like maybe my husband could watch her or someone else would watch her and I would go hunting. But when she was born, number one, I didn't want to be away from her. Number two, my husband works night shift, which always meant he was sleeping during the day and he was gone at night. And then third, we didn't have anyone within an hour's drive of us to watch Isabella. So I figured if I was going to actually get to hunt and not give up like everything that I loved, I was just going to have to take her with me. So I was very nervous, but I just started taking her with me. And now, like, she's always with me. So
That
it
was the
worked
story.
out.
That's the story that I would say it worked out. The story that I'm referring to would have been, I believe, Becca's first article in Deer and Deer Honey. She's actually been featured on the cover of Outdoor Life, and she actually is a writer for Outdoor Life. The one we called Baby on Board, and that basically describes your whole journey with Isabella and how you got her started. But Okay, so you're going to be known as that gal who's got her baby strapped in a backpack to her back. That's what people are going to think about when they think about you. Um, okay, so I know you say, okay, I got to take her with me. Now, my two girls are older. They're 19 and 15. I can't imagine strapping a screaming little monster to my back and then trying to go hunting. How did that all work out? Did you just say, no, this isn't going to work?
Well, not every day was great. Some days were really hard, and like we made it in the woods for like 10 minutes and had to turn around. But I feel like it was easiest when she was really tiny, because as soon as I put her in the backpack, she would immediately just go to sleep. So it was ultimately just like walking around with a backpack on, and it was quiet. So that wasn't as difficult, but as she got older, like she would notice more things and she would want to talk, and she didn't like sitting still. So I had to change like the whole way I hunted. I had to just keep moving. If she fell asleep, I could stop, but if she was awake, I had to keep moving or she would fuss. So I had to work on like becoming better at spot and stalk and ground hunting and everything. So everything was way different.
And I know that you were plying her with lots of treats to keep her.
Yes. And I had lollipops, and like when she was really little, I had like the teething cookies, and I would keep them in my pocket to give her like at that specific time where I needed her to be quiet.
And now, were you deer hunting? I know that you can tell us about the first successful deer hunt, but were you mostly small game hunting or were you doing everything?
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So trying for squirrels and rabbits and lo and
You know,
behold.
whatever's in season, that's what we hunt.
Okay, so the first deer, we actually printed that article, but tell the listeners that story. How did that all happen where you got your first deer with her?
Okay, so it was 2019. It was Veterans Day. I remember it was Veterans Day because it was a holiday, and I knew everyone else was going to be out on public land, and we got a very late start. I almost didn't go because just everything was going wrong that day. So it was like 11 o'clock and it was hot. It was 70 something degrees in November. And I just decided to take a walk, take a loop around the field, and I was kind of over it. And as I was walking in, we spooked a deer, and it was a doe. So she just ran off, and I was like kicking myself. I'm like, I should have walked slow or something. And so we just basically make a big loop around the woods and the field and head back. And in that same exact spot was a doe. I don't know if it was the same one. I'm guessing it probably was. I guess she probably just turned around and came back. And Isabella was asleep. So she didn't really know what was going on. But I knew that I was going to have like a split second to shoot that deer. So I didn't even think about it. I just drew and I shot, and I made the perfect shot. And she went back through the woods, and she ended up right at the edge of the field that we had walked. So thankfully, it wasn't that bad of a drag because she was the biggest deer, like the biggest doe I have ever shot in my life. And I couldn't fit her. I had a Jeep at that point. I'm trying to get her in that Jeep. Number one, I threw my back out. Number two, she wouldn't fit. I couldn't get her in the back. So my husband, he's on night shift, so he was still sleeping, but thankfully he was home. So I called him and I was like, you have to bring the truck. You have to bring a truck or something because there's no way to get this deer home unless I cut her up. So he had to come, and Isabella like slept through the whole thing, but it was really cool.
How far did you have to drag that deer?
I would say less than 100 yards.
100 yards, and we've got a picture of with the tractor lifting it. Looks like a 130, 150 pound doe, nice doe, and a 1-year-old strapped to your back.
Yes. Like looking back on these hunts, like I don't know how I did it, but since then I've gotten smarter and I've made things easier for myself. But looking back, it's just like, man, I can't believe I did that. Maybe it was just like the adrenaline pumping through me that I managed to get all that done. But since then, I got a cargo carrier for my Jeep, which I don't need anymore because I have a truck again. And I have a jet sled, which makes dragging a deer
much easier.
Much easier.
And Isabella is she 4 now?
She'll be 4 in August.
So she's going to be 4. I know that from following you that most of your excursions she's on her own, but I still see sometimes where you're still carrying her. How's that going? Man. All right, let's take a break and let's thank one of our sponsors. Today's episode of Deer Talk Now is brought to you by TrueFire and the Edge line of archery releases. Designed with a smaller than dime-sized head, the Edge utilizes a linear bearing that delivers an extremely smooth trigger feel. Pull the trigger back to open the jaws and let up on the trigger to close the jaws. This release also features a lockdown set screw for your length of adjustment. Once you have the correct length, just simply tighten the set screw and the length will be locked in place. 100% American made. If you've seen me on Deer and Deer Hunting TV, this is the release this is my go-to release. I love these releases. I've been shooting them for years. And what I really especially love about the Edge design is its buckle fold-back design. This allows me to put my release on before I leave the truck or right when I leave the truck and keep it on until I come back. Super nice, even for climbing tree stands, does not get in the way. For more information on the Edge release, visit Baradine.com.
Well, after this past deer season, the last deer that I shot at the very tail end of this deer season, she wasn't in her backpack. And that was the first successful hunt I've had without her in the backpack. So she does pretty good without it, but sometimes I just put her up on my shoulders because she's just too big. She's too tall for the backpack.
She's so long.
Her legs are
little face and her
yes, like her legs are literally hitting the backs of my knees if I put her in the backpack. It looks ridiculous. So she has outgrown that.
So tell us that story too, because I really enjoyed that one. The one from this year, I believe it was February 1st, wasn't it?
It was. It's the first year I've ever shot in February. I never thought I'd shoot a deer in February either. But I shot a doe in October. So I bought a second tag and I was trying so hard. I didn't want to eat another tag. I hadn't shot 2 deers in deer season since before I had Isabella. So since I got a second tag, I was determined. And there were 5 days left of season after this day. And it was supposed to rain every single day. So I knew that this was probably going to be my last chance. And again, it was like almost 70 degrees. It ended up being so warm that day. And went out on public land and I saw some deer out in one of the fields. So we just kind of snuck up to the tree line and hung out there and just hoping that they would head our way. And the one deer she came within shooting range. And so I tucked Isabella back behind this giant tree. And I said, stay right here. And I went on the other side because I didn't want them to see her because I didn't know how much she was going to move around. And I said, I'm going to try to shoot this deer. You just stay right here. And I crawled maybe like 5 yards past her. And I took the shot and it was a good shot. And I crawled back to the tree and she was like, Mommy, did you get the deer? And then we had to go look for it. And it was really easy. The hardest part of that one was also the drag back.
And she's probably playing with like her Little Mermaid dolls or something.
Yeah, she brings toys and stuff. So
I like the ones with like the pink boots or whatever.
Yeah, she likes to pick her own outfit, so you never really know what she's gonna wear.
Does that worry you? By the time she's a teenager, this is not going to be cool anymore, or does that matter to you?
I mean, I do. Like, I hope that this is something she'll want to continue to do with me. But if not, I mean, that's okay too. I feel like her having the knowledge that hunting is good. I mean, that's really all I want for her is to like understand and appreciate this lifestyle, even if she chooses not to do it later in life.
And I know you guys do other things too. You raise your own vegetables and you're basically homesteaders.
Yes, exactly.
And probably working. I know your husband's working night shift, and you're doing all sorts of other things on top of it. Yeah, it's very admirable what you're doing, and especially what you mentioned. That's what I did with my kids. They don't hunt anymore, but they had that experience, and to me, exactly. It was always knowing where their food is coming from. One thing I wanted to follow up on was, okay, we talked about deer. We talked about turkeys. We talked about small game. You've also shot coyotes and other things too, haven't you?
Yes, I did.
How are you doing this? I mean, I find it fascinating because, 99.9% of my hunting is out of a tree stand or a blind. Where did you find that? I mean, is that just something your dad taught you, that woodsmanship to be able to get close?
I just feel like I have stupid luck sometimes. Like I personally don't feel I'm that great. Like I have so many opportunities that like don't happen for me. Like I have so many close calls in the woods that sometimes it's just really frustrating being on the ground without a blind, not in a tree stand. And I miss hunting from a tree stand, but I know that with her right now, it's just not really an option. So, I mean, I feel like it's just stupid luck sometimes. Like I
Have
get
you
lucky and
have you had any encounters with other hunters? I mean, the other thing is you're doing this on public land. Have you had
yes,
any encounters that way?
no, I think I've seen another hunter like maybe once or twice in the
Wow.
parking lots, but I purposely don't hunt the areas that I know there are a lot of other people. And I don't hunt in public land during gun season because then you're going to encounter a lot of other hunters.
You're going to be encountering other hunters,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
matter where you are during gun season.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
excuse me. I just lost my train of thought there. I'm going to grab a sip of water here. David, you can pause there. Okay, so you're hunting public land. You're
Mhm.
hunting with a recurve. Just tell us, and this isn't a commercial spot. I just want to know what type of equipment are you using? What type of arrows? What type of broadheads? Because for me, that's fascinating.
I have a tomahawk longbow, which is actually exclusive to Three Rivers Archery, and they're all made in USA. They're awesome. It's a longbow. It is 62 inches long. I shoot 45 pounds.
Wow.
Um, Arrows, I shoot cedar shaft arrows, which Three Rivers makes those for me too. And then I shoot 125 grain woodsman broadheads.
Wenzel Woodsman's.
Yes, they've been around a while.
Yes, those are awesome. My
Yeah, I got
dad
my
shot
dad.
those.
I got my dad to start shooting them again too.
My dad shot those out of his crossbow. He's just turned 87 yesterday, and that was his favorite broadhead. And
Yeah,
he got
they're
that to shoot out of a
awesome.
crossbow. So
Yeah,
you're
they're awesome.
sharpening those yourselves. I've
Mhm.
seen you've actually. Are you still doing the turkey feather fletchings?
Yeah, sometimes I do. I haven't done them as often. I don't usually do those for like my actual hunting arrows. I'll usually do those for small game, just for fun. I just don't feel like I personally can get the exact accuracy cutting them and getting them all exact and everything. So those are more for fun than for actual big game hunting.
And how often are you practicing?
It depends. I usually go a couple times a week to the actual range. Here we have one 15 minutes down the road, and sometimes I'll just shoot in the yard. But through the summer, I don't shoot quite as often. But then once deer season starts, like I would say August, I'll try to shoot a couple times a week.
Sure. Okay, so now I want to get to this is my last question for you. We're actually hitting our time perfectly here. The last subject is I asked if you had encountered any other hunters in the woods. Now, let's flip that to social media because I know that you've been encountering all sorts of people on social media.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the negativity?
Um, I just kind of try to ignore it. I feel like most of the people are not hunters that I get negativity from. So a lot of people just don't understand or haven't done it themselves. So I just kind of ignore it and brush it off. There are some hunters who are negative. They just think that I'm going like it's too extreme to do what I do, like the traditional, the kid, everything. It's just like too much, but I just ignore it.
Is that from the hunting standpoint, from the hunters that you're hearing from that would be negative? Is it just that, or is it because you're dragging your daughter out there?
I've got both,
Hmm.
so it depends on the
And I
person.
shouldn't say that. I mean that would be theirs. I think it's great, but I mean some people might say, oh, you're just doing this to cause a spectacle, and you know.
Yeah, some people say that, but it
Okay,
is.
so this one I'm going to bring up because I know you encountered it a lot. This is from, I believe, 2 years ago, and I thought you handled it admirably. This is from the Daily Mail. And so now let me tell people what the Daily Mail is. It's probably the most liberal news source in the world. It
Yeah.
originated in the UK 125 years ago. It's the UK's largest circulated newspaper, almost a million subscribers. Um, this is the headline. Woman who takes her 2-year-old, all caps 2-year-old, 2-year-old daughter hunting and posts photos of the infant with dead animals is slammed, exclamation point, as a, quote, bad mother because she insists all parents should, quote, normalize killing for their kids. How did you respond to that when that first came out?
Well, first of all, I want to give a little background on the actual article they published. I had someone reach out to me before that, and they were from the Daily Mail, which I knew what the Daily Mail was. And they said, I would like to write an article on you and have it be like just facts, not swaying negative or just, straight facts. And I should have said no, but I said, okay, that's fine. And they published it, and it was a good article. It was good. Like, it wasn't negative or anything, but they sold it to a very liberal news page. And once they shared it, then all the negativity started pouring in. And then they reached out to me, I would say a year later, asking for me to comment on it again. And I managed to sort of, I guess, add a few of my own opinions to it. And I still got negativity, but I think more people understood it a little more, I guess.
Absolutely. And this is the thing that I'm going to follow up with that. Becca, you handled this terrifically. I really have to commend you on that. But if you go to that Daily Mail article, which is still out there, it had, I don't know, thousands and thousands of comments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, you know what? This is what I did. These were the top comments. So I filtered the comments. And I thought, oh, my God, we're going to get all sorts of hate from these, people across the pond. Here are the top comments. I'm going to read just 3 of them. One of the top comments posted 2 years ago. Children should know where their food comes from. If you're not prepared to kill a chicken, you shouldn't be allowed to eat one. That was one of the most liked comments. Another comment was kind of the same thing. If we're going to eat, why do you care? We just have to raise another cow if we don't. That was one. And then the other one was, same thing. Exactly nothing wrong with sustenance hunting, which I thought was really good because I was expecting. The other thing that I had to do just from my journalistic background was I had to do a little bit of research on the Daily Mail because I've seen the stories. Their target demographic is middle to lower income females in the UK.
Really?
Yes. And so what I did a little bit more on that was basically it's kind of like our news, but on steroids, and the fact that if you've got ABC, CBS, Fox, all those media organizations are catering to a certain demographic. Oh, I think I hear somebody there. Well, we got to see her. And so that's where that came from. So let's pause that comment. Let's say hi to Isabella quick.
I'm here. She's been so good just sitting.
Hi, Isabella. How you doing?
She might not talk.
I saw a video of you. I think you were coloring in your coloring books, and you looked up at your mom with your sweet eyes, and you said, "Can we go hunting, please?" That was one of my favorite videos.
Her favorite is rabbit hunting. She loved rabbit hunting.
She likes rabbit.
She does. Dixie does like rabbit hunting.
Oh, Dixie's your beagle, isn't she?
Yeah. I think that's why she likes rabbit hunting so much, just because she gets to run the dog.
Is the dog working pretty good?
Yeah, she does really good. She didn't do that great this year just because Isabella was kind of trying to be in control of her, but it was fun.
Isabella, what's your favorite thing to eat that mom brings home hunting?
What kind of meat do you like the best?
Bunny.
What?
Bunny.
Bunny.
Bunny? I like bunny too. It's really good, isn't it? You're shy. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Precious, I was hoping for that cameo, and we got it. We got it. So have you going back to the Antihunters, have you received any of that from within the United States?
Not really.
No.
I mean, a comment here and there, but nothing like that was.
And what about like social media? Have they been suppressing any of your posts?
Surprisingly not. Not that I
Really?
know of. Yeah.
Wow, we get it a lot. I mean, like if we show a video or even photos, some are taken down, or things like that.
Every once in a while, I'll get the graphic image thing where you have to click to see the photo, but that's about like I haven't had any removed lately. So
That makes me want to click on them even more when I see that.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm clicking on it now because I know it's
Exactly.
on my phone. Yeah.
Exactly.
And normally it's just some person there with a deer or whatever. It's,
Yeah. I mean, it's not like any of my photos are actually graphic either.
all right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us, Beka and Isabella.
Thanks for having me.
We very much appreciate you joining us for Deer Talk Now, and we're going to keep watching you and looking forward to your next adventures.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you later.
See ya. Bye.
See you.
See you.
Bye.
For Beka Garris, I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Deer Talk Now podcast. For more of these, check them out on your local platforms or go to our website, deeranddeerhunting.com. We'll catch you next time.